And here we go.
There's the deluge. Here's ignition.
Roger, roll, Atlantis. Doubling up.
Did you just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, that sure looks like a perfect world.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers can fly!
Bingo! Right in the center.
Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
No!
Oh my God.
Yikes, you bet. Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Well, it's time for another launch. We are live looking at Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida because yet another Falcon 9 is vertical, counting down for a launch, fingers crossed, in just over 54 minutes. And it's going to be a sad day indeed for booster B1069 because unfortunately this booster isn't coming home. It is coming home, just not in one piece. It's going to end up in the Atlantic Ocean in a few pieces before sinking to the bottom. But lots to discuss ahead of the MRV-1 mission this evening / afternoon, depending how you want to classify it. My name's Ryan Caton. Thank you for joining NSF's live launch coverage. It's not just my voice you'll be hearing over the next hour or so, however, because we also have some other people joining us to walk you through the pre-launch procedures and, of course, what happens after the engines light. Fingers crossed to liftoff, but that hasn't happened twice this week for SpaceX. Alex, how you doing?
Well, let's hope it does indeed lift off, because otherwise it's not going to be very well for tomorrow if they were to do a 24-hour turnaround, because we may have some action somewhere else tomorrow. But yeah, man, a booster funeral today with B1069 already going away. They really are expending this one. We'll talk about it, of course, later today, but yeah, I hope everybody is like, black suits and everything. No, but just joking. It's a pity, but hey, it's the 32nd flight, right? So might as well.
Also joining us in the studio, we have Magnus.
Yeah, we're hoping for a launch. We didn't have some great opportunities the past week, but at the same time, it is sad seeing this booster go following 31 successful flights.
And joining us from the field, not only with the live views, but also on commentary, fingers crossed the connection holds, Sawyer Rosenstein is out in the field for us. How are you, Sawyer?
I'm doing fantastic. Of course, right as the truck goes behind me, but otherwise, things are going great. As you could tell by the picture, it's a little bit on the breezy side here today, especially because where I am is right along the water, but it doesn't seem like that'll be an issue for flight, and we could talk about the weather, but I will say right now out here, it is gorgeous but hot.
Okay, well, the wind and the weather is definitely going to be a topic of conversation as we head through the next 50 minutes or so. I think I also saw some fish skipping out of the water there while Sawyer was talking. Producing today's stream, we have Sucknor pushing all the buttons for us, so thank you. And with that, Alex, I'm going to hand it over to you for a little bit of a mission rundown, because, of course, for once, this isn't a Falcon 9 launch with Starlink satellites on top. I mean, that in itself is an astounding achievement. The second element of it is that, of course, this is the last flight of a booster which has flown many, many times.
It is. I guess people might be wondering, what does MRV means at all, right? I've seen some questions already in chat about that. Well, that stands for Mission Robotic Vehicle. That's sort of I wouldn't say really the main satellite, because technically the other satellites are also main satellites, but it's basically a multi-satellite mission. You've got also the mission extension pods that are being carried sort of underneath of that big satellite, and they're all a part of Northrop Grumman's sort of mission robotic extension sort of entire portfolio or program or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this is the main big one with the 2 robotic arms and all that. In a very short explanation is just about extending the life of other satellites out there. This one is being thrown out by Falcon 9 to a geostationary transfer orbit, so a GTO, geosynchronous transfer orbit, and that one is sort of this oval-shaped orbit where the perigee is sort of around LEO, low Earth orbit, but then the apogee is close to the geostationary belt. And so these satellites, the main one plus the other 3 below, those are going to go to that geosynchronous orbit, right? And there, they're going to meet up with other satellites, and they're going to be able to be served as extension to that satellite. For example, those 3 little satellites, the bigger one will grab those that actually meet in geostationary orbit. They'll grab one of those and then install one of those little, as they call them, pods, the mission extension pods, and will be docked to another active satellite out there in geosynchronous orbit, and they'll be able to extend its life. It's a multi-mission sort of upgrade, so to speak, right? Where you have an old satellite up there and you want to extend its life. Then you can attach those mission extension pods where it sort of attaches to the existing propulsion system, the existing nozzle of the engine and things like that. And so it is able to attach to that and act as a secondary propulsion system, sort of once the main propulsion system of the satellite is already run out of fuel and things like that. Then you can attach one of these and it continues acting as its own propulsion system, adding to control and pointing and all that stuff, which is very important for the purposes of, well, you have a satellite that still has all of its antennas, it still has all of its solar power and everything, but it just doesn't have propellant left to continue its mission. Then you install one of these babies and it keeps going. And so the main satellite, as I was saying, that one sort of works along with those pods to be able to install those pods. The robotic arms also have future intentions as well, because you want to repair satellites in orbit. And so they want to test those robotic arms being able to also do repairs in space in future missions, so that it's not just you attach something to an existing satellite that works. Maybe the satellite has a perfect propulsion system, but what doesn't work is an antenna. Maybe one cable snapped or something like that when it was in space. Well, maybe you want to have a robotic repair mission, for example. Then this kind of technology can be helpful in the future for that sort of mission. And so that's some of the things that they're going to be testing. These arms, by the way, while the main body is by Northrop Grumman, the arms are being built by DARPA. It's sort of like a partnership between Northrop Grumman and DARPA. And obviously, the military is very interested in this kind of technology because it's one that can extend their own satellites. Are very multi-billion precious satellites in space. And so if you can extend their life by just launching a much cheaper mission like this one, then sure, let's go for it. And so that's why they're funding this sort of thing. But yeah, that's what the mission is all about. And yeah, that's why this booster is being expended. There's these 4 different satellites combined. It's like 4,200 kilograms, which is not a lot. But they have only ion thrusters, which are very low power. They take a long time to get up there, so they're pushing it further. They're giving it a larger boost than perhaps what we see on other GTO missions. And so that is what the extra push will be by expending that booster instead of reserving a little bit of that propellant for the landing. They're going to be using it all up and then letting it burn up in the atmosphere as it re-enters.
Of course, expending a booster, SpaceX would rather expend one of their older boosters compared to a brand new booster. They can't do that, of course, with the recent Falcon Heavies, Heavies plural, over the last few years, I should say, because they're not that regular. But of course, Falcon Heavy has a kind of a reinforced core stage versus the standard Falcon 9 booster, which we see as Falcon Heavy cycles or Falcon 9 single stick cores, of course. So would rather toss one into the drink with 32 flights than one flight. Of course, it is still sad to see B1069 go into the Atlantic. Of course, the funny number booster. I'm not gonna skip past it. There's a reason why everybody's so interested in this flight. But there is one fact, Alex, I wanted to clarify with you, because it was almost going to be poetic. We were going to have the Starlink launch from Vandenberg. We were going to have the Starship launch last week, and this was going to be, according to Next Spaceflight, SpaceX's 699th mission and Falcon 9's 669th mission. How do those numbers actually get calculated? Because I also know that you do your own calculations and your numbers are slightly different.
Yeah, so for this mission, it should be... Oh boy, yeah, so it's the 669th Falcon 9 mission, that is correct. But that includes all of the missions, and by that we mean so you can see here, it's actually the 667th orbital flight of Falcon 9. So what's the two different missions that are sort of the discrepancy here? One of them is the launch abort test of Crew Dragon during ascent, the in-flight abort test. That was not orbital, but it was a launch, and it was also a mission. So it's a Falcon 9 launch, Falcon 9 mission, but it's not an orbital flight, and so you see there 667 instead of the 668 that it will be otherwise. The other discrepancy is AMO6. That one didn't launch. That one was a mission, however, and so that is the other one that is sort of the discrepancy. And the reason for this is because you gotta have, like in the database on Next Spaceflight, you gotta have something saying this is a mission, right? And when it spells out the stats, it tells you the missions, not the launches. And so this is why, basically. This is why there's that discrepancy. And yeah, overall for SpaceX, I believe it was also supposed to have been, you mentioned the 699th or something like that, you mentioned?
Well, Next Spaceflight currently says it's the 698th, but it was going to be the 699th
Starship
overall mission for SpaceX because of Starship. But of course, Starship has decided, actually, I want to rest. I'm not actually going to fly. I'm just going to light a few of my engines and then go back to the production site for a few days. I don't actually want to launch just yet.
So yeah, we were robbed of that magical number because of Starship. If it had launched last Thursday, then this will have been the 698th launch of SpaceX, but also the 699th mission because of that one mission discrepancy with AMO6. It was not a launch, but it was a mission that just happened to fail because they lost the satellite and everything. So yeah, that's why you don't integrate your payloads with your rocket during a static fire. Huh? RFA? Hi? But yeah, no, but truly, like New Glenn also had that problem as well, where they dodged a bullet by not integrating the Amazon payload on that mission, right? Whereas the previous one had been integrated, the Bluebird satellite. Yeah, so quite a bullet that they dodged from Amazon there. But yeah, that's sort of the discrepancy there in the numbers.
And of course, we have been getting some questions coming in through chat. So if you haven't already, do feel free to tag us at NASA Spaceflight or at NSF. And that brings your question into a queue in the background, keeps everything nice and organized, and we can do our best at answering most of them and putting them on the screen. You don't have to do super chats or tips or anything. Of course, we're very appreciative when you do, but just normal chat messages, we do our best to answer as many of those as possible. Magnus, a question here for you. Kit 44 knots or 44 KT. They're asking, is this a test demonstrator or has this spacecraft flown before?
Yeah, so good question. Alex will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but Northrop Grumman has done a couple of demonstrator repairs previously on Intelsat 901 and another one, but I believe, 901 and 1002. But Alex will have to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, you're correct. Yeah, they launched two of those. One, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019, and then another one in 2020. They were both launched on Proton rockets all the way from Kazakhstan, and yeah. And those were actually super cool because it's like as if, you know how I talked about the mission extension pods that sort of connect to the bigger satellite? Those are small satellites. Those are like maybe it's like a little bit over 400 kilograms each. Those satellites are very small, but this is like a big satellite actually that attached to another big satellite. What they found out is that if you want to extend the lifetime of a satellite, you really don't need that big of a satellite. but this was sort of their demonstration. And these are actual pictures, if I'm not mistaken, of the real thing. I think from MEV2. Yeah, MEV2 approach trajectory on the top right there. But
Yeah, one of the big differences with those is the fact that for the MEV, the original ones, it was basically a docking port that they kind of attached to, whereas this one, what makes it different is that it's got these little connectors that go into basically the payload launch adapters. So the part that would attach to the rocket once it springs away, they've designed it so it connects into those now, and you just stick on the pod with the electric xenon motor on there, and off it goes. Whereas this one, it would stay on the satellite, and I believe the first one stayed for 5 years, and then would separate away, and then can continue its mission on another vehicle.
Yeah, one of the cool things that I remember seeing from that time, was they have like a grappling, not like a grappling hook, but it's more like the probe and drogue system, right? From Soyuz, or back in the day from Apollo, and they do that with the main nozzle, like the main engine, and they go in and they put the probe there, and then they attach to the docking, not docking, but more like the attachment collar for the adapter, right? For the launch adapter system that they have to be able to separate. They attach to that same system, and it's super cool because they use first the first probe thing to sort of approach, and then they firmly attach themselves to that. So it's really cool the way that they do it. I believe somebody else, I'm sorry, Ryan, but I'm reading chat, so I think somebody else was also asking about, like, can they do this with anybody else? And I believe the reason why they can do it with so many satellites is precisely because they attach to the attachment system, to the payload attachment fitting, whatever you want to call it. And that's usually a standard across the industry. It's very standard. And so many satellites out there have those. And it's rather easy to find a lot of satellites with those grappling surfaces, if you want to call it like that. It's just the attachment collar, basically for attaching it to the rocket when you launch it, and things like that. And those are very standard across the different spacecraft and whatnot, especially of this size.
I have to say, this is like the easiest stream I've ever hosted, because Alex just keeps going and going and doing it all by himself. I don't even need to jump in at all. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. Sawyer, you are out in the field. I feel like we've spoken to you once in the last 25 minutes. How's the weather doing? We can see by the camera it is a little bit windy, but how is the weather looking from your perspective?
It is definitely on the breezier side, but keep in mind this camera is right along the water, so that might make it seem even shakier than it already is. Add in the breeze. It's kind of going northwesterly from where we're at. But, I mean, there's some thin clouds coming across the sky, nothing too absolutely crazy, because the main concern, of course, was the cumulus cloud rule and then the anvil cloud rule, because it's Florida in the afternoon, and there's always a chance that storms will pop up and mess up your day. So, that's why they have those concerns in there. But other than some thin, wispy clouds coming through, which hopefully will go away so we can see the rocket better, not much happening here weather-wise.
And we have another question from chat. Kian name is asking, from where is this view? And I'm sure, as somebody who has been watching launches in person for a little while, you'll have some advice for the boys and girls watching on the best spots to watch launches from the Cape.
Yeah, so currently I am located over at Cars Park, which for launch day is open, and you just have to pay a small fee to get in, and then you can stay and watch the launch. Otherwise, it hosts RVs and things like that. There's always plenty of great spots along US 1 in Titusville as well. Max Brewer Bridge is good for those more northerly launches that we've been having with Starlink lately, but you'll still get a view of it. All of those are great options, but I'm here at Park, so you get a great view straight ahead of the water of the rocket, and maybe a little later I can give you a tour of some of the other pads.
If that isn't something to stick around for, I don't know what is. Of course, we are just crossed under 36 minutes to go until launch, and of course, Magnus, the T-minus 38-minute mark, is really the starter when things start to get important for a Falcon 9 countdown.
Yep. The most important part of having a rocket launch is having a fueled rocket. And at the 38-minute mark, the launch director is going to go through a poll where they're going to check the status of the vehicle, status of the range, and make sure that it is ready for fuel loading, which begins at the 35-minute mark. You can't launch a rocket without fuel, so this is a relatively important step. It starts with LOX and RP1 load on the stage 1, which begins in 16 seconds from now. And those will complete just before liftoff. So this is an important step, and we should begin that fuel loading in 5 seconds.
Of course, a little bit difficult to see from Cars Park over the water, but of course we have the transporter erector slightly obscuring our view as well. So usually if we are a bit closer to the vehicle, then we're able to see some frost picking up, but Florida weather not cooperating today, unfortunately, but maybe we'll see something. We'll just have to wait and see if we can peer through the heat haze and see what the vehicle is up to as we progress through the countdown. Okay, we have a question here from Kenny Reed, who is asking, have they removed the grid fins and landing legs? I don't know if we've got any close-up pictures released by SpaceX of this specific vehicle, but Alex, I would assume they have been.
Yep, they have been removed and it's clean. And yeah, I'm actually going to put these pictures in our back channel. They have published a few. But yeah, it's clean, no grid fins, no landing legs, and very much ready to go to be expended.
Wonderful. Well, not wonderful, but nice that they're not wasting grid fins and landing legs when they don't have to. We have another question here from Hydro Rex, and this is definitely a question for your spreadsheets. Are there Falcon 9 first stage boosters with more flights? I know there's definitely one, but a lot of the boosters now reaching into the upper 20s and the 30s.
Yeah, plenty of boosters well above this one. This is B1069 on its 32nd flight. So we have, for example, on the West Coast, B1063, which has done already 33 flights. Then you've got, of course, B1067, which has already done 36 flights. You've got B1071, which has done 35 flights as well. So there's a few out there that have done many more flights, or at least quite a few more flights than B1069. And of course, there's a few others as well catching up. They're very, very close. B1077 and B1078, both on the Cape here. And those are at 29 flights both. So very, very close. It's like just a few more months until they get there.
Along those lines, Sawyer, we have a question here from the French Taunter, who's asking, do you think any Falcon 9s will break Discovery's flight record? It seems like they expend every time one gets close. Of course, Space Shuttle Discovery, the best space shuttle, flew 39 times. Slightly different flight cycle for a space shuttle versus a Falcon 9 booster. But I mean, it's going to be inevitable. They're going to reach 39 flights with a Falcon 9 booster eventually.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we'll see them get to 40, I'm sure, and maybe we'll see if they push 50. And with Discovery at 39, which is a great orbiter, but we all know Endeavor's still the best orbiter, I think it's very doable. But you made a good point there, and I think that's worth noting. The boosters, they go up, and then they come right back down. We're talking, 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the trajectory. Whereas the space shuttle held crew for at least 2-3 weeks, depending on the mission, kept them alive, brought them home, and then flew again that way. So it's apples and oranges in a way. So I think there will definitely be more flights of these boosters, but nothing's going to compare to what Shuttle did.
Absolutely, of course. I mean, quite literally nothing on this Earth compares to the beauty of seeing Space Shuttle Discovery, because, as I'm sure we can all agree, it is indeed the best space shuttle in the best exhibit in the
No, it's not.
in the Smithsonian.
It's laying
It's
flat.
Endeavor.
It's flat on its wheels.
Endeavor.
Have you seen the new Endeavor exhibit?
Oh, it's 3 against 1. I love this.
Yeah. By the way, if you haven't seen it, you should totally check out. I had some posts on it, did an article about it on NASAspaceflight.com where you can see just how amazing they did with the new exhibit. Even if it's not your favorite orbiter, you gotta give it props for how they displayed it vertical, stacked for launch with an actual ET and SRBs.
Everybody is entitled
you
to their own opinion.
Didn't you say that it was a very easy stream to host? You
I
said
think
that like
Ryan is speechless right now.
15 minutes ago.
Yep.
Backfiring.
Yep.
You're loving this, right? There you go.
Oh, it's incredible. Ah. Let's see here. Alien, thank you for the tip at tips.nasaspaceflight.com. They're saying that they don't get the payload. I need a proper Alex answer on this. There are 4 satellites, ? And they go to near geostationary orbit but release together, and all 4 of them service the same satellite to extend it. Please explain in full detail.
All right, so they are launched into the same transfer orbit, and then they separately, on their own, use their own onboard propulsion in order to get to geostationary orbit. Now, they are released sort of separate, but then they have to meet in geosynchronous orbit. The main satellite, the bigger one, sort of attaches one of them and sort of carries it, sort of like a backpack sort of thing, if you know what I mean. And then once it gets closer to the satellite that it wants to service, then it detaches the pod and then and basically installs that on the big satellite that it may service. I'm gonna be honest, I have not looked into what kind of satellite they're gonna be servicing. I know about the mission, I know about the technology and like the but I just cannot remember if they have even said which satellite they're gonna be using all of this hardware on. So I'm gonna defer that to maybe other of my commentators here with me, if they know.
I think this is honestly going to be a watch and find out, because that's kind of the best explanation that Northrop Grumman has given to this point.
All
I think
right.
once we actually see it, then that'll help.
So yeah, it's probably that they have not. I mean, because I've looked it up. I gotta say I have not seen anything, so that's why I'm saying that I do not know. Maybe it's just that they haven't said, but yeah.
Yeah, you and I have probably read way too many fact sheets the last couple days.
Yeah.
But this, just want to ask a follow-up question to this. So we're sending these 4 satellites to geostationary transfer orbit, and they will eventually raise themselves to geostationary orbit. But geostationary orbit is at 35,000 kilometers in altitude. Why are these satellites in geostationary orbit going to need engines to raise their orbit? Alex, can you answer that one?
These 4 satellites, well, because they're going to be in a transfer orbit, so as the name implies, they're not getting all the way out there, right? And so they need their own propulsion to get all the way out there. If you were to launch these satellites on a direct flight, they will need a Falcon Heavy, basically, because it's like over 4 tons to that orbit. Falcon 9 may be able to do maybe like 1 ton, maybe launching a couple of the little ones that it's carrying, those little pods, but not the bigger one, directly into the geosynchronous orbit. So that's why they have their own propulsion, so that they can then do that final. It's, I don't know, like getting from like getting on a flight, international flight, and then grabbing a local flight. I've done a few of those in the past, like, I don't know, Madrid, Charlotte, and then Charlotte, some other place that I'm not going to mention, right? I've done that a few times, and so, yeah, like, you have your own propulsion, and you do the last mile sort of thing. So the bigger rocket gets you to that transfer orbit, and then with your onboard propulsion, you do the rest. But then we can see an animation of sort of how it works. The 3 little satellites separate, the bigger one also separates, and then they all meet in geosynchronous orbit.
But why would they need to do that? I mean, it's not like they're at risk of re-entering like a Starlink satellite.
I really don't know why they're doing it this way. Originally, I remember when they had concepts for this mission where the pods were actually attached to the bigger satellite at one point originally. Instead, you can see here now, it's grabbing one of the pods, and now it's attaching it to itself, sort of like a backpack, as I said before, or more.
But
like
why do
cap,
these geostationary satellites need a boost? Isn't geostationary just so high up that it's
Oh,
not
you
an
mean
issue with drag or anything?
operational, the ones that
Yeah.
need the servicing? Okay, no, yeah, those. It's because you have a lot of perturbances in your orbit, even though it's geosynchronous and whatnot. It's way out there, so you have perturbances because you are a little bit far away from Earth. So you have perturbances on your orbit from the gravity of the moon, for example. You've got other planets out there as well perturbing your orbit. So every now and then you need to fire the thrusters to keep it in check. Some satellites even share their thrusters, their own attitude control thrusters. The propulsion system is sort of shared, so you share also that with the main propulsion system, and so you basically are doubling the expenses of that propellant that you have on board, because you're not only using it for maintaining your orbit, but also for maintaining the attitude of the satellite. And so after maybe 15 years or so, sometimes they can maybe last a little bit longer. Usually that's about the time that you normally run out of that propellant. But maybe the antennas are okay, the solar panels are okay as well, and you might want to extend that satellite's service life. And so you do that. This is the other way, by the way. This is like, there's a satellite that doesn't have a solar panel deployed or something, then they go out there and snip it and make it open. It's being too often that sort of problem where maybe like one of the solar panels doesn't deploy. That kind of repair mission will be sweet.
Indeed. Approaching 24 and a half minutes left to go until launch. Of course, we haven't heard, I'm going to very briefly check, but I don't believe we have heard official confirmation from SpaceX just yet that propellant load is underway. And unfortunately, that visual confirmation is a little bit difficult to see, but I see some white pixels, so I'm going to be hopeful, flashing, turning on and off every so often. So fingers crossed there is venting coming from the pad, and that fuel load is indeed underway. But of course, there is a just under 4-hour launch window today, opening at 15 minutes past the hour, or in 23 minutes and 50 seconds time, closing at 1:04 coordinated universal time. What would that be? 21:04 local time?
9:04 Eastern.
Me doing maths live on stream. Always a great idea. But do keep your questions and comments coming. Tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight at NSF. We have a question here from Barney Rubble. Magnus, how many Falcon 9s do you think will be built, considering what's already in use?
Well, I think this depends ultimately on how many Falcon Heavy missions we're looking at. There are still a couple Falcon Heavies that we know are on the manifest, and there are still going to be a couple Falcon 9s that will need to be expended. So my guess is we're looking at least 20 to maybe even 50. I know this is maybe blowing it out of the ballpark, but as long as Falcon Heavy keeps expending the center core, and as long as we have missions like this, they will still need to build some extra boosters. The exact number is difficult to predict because we don't know the missions, but we do know Starship is coming online. But I would say I would be surprised if they don't build at least 20 more. So I would assume we get to be 120.
Of course, they're into the 11s now, which always catches you off guard because you're so used to saying B10 number, and no, it's B11. That's how many boosters that SpaceX has built now for Falcon 9 over the years. Of course, over the original Falcon 9, and then however you want to classify what happened between the original Falcon 9 and Block 5, because there's so many different naming schemes that it's very easy to lose track of the full thrusts and the full thrust pluses and the Block 4s and the Block 5s and everything else in between. 21 minutes and 35 seconds left to go. Of course, Alex, we are coming up on the world famous, everybody knows, T-minus 20-minute vent. What is, and why is, how is the T-minus 20-minute vent?
Yeah, the T-minus 20-minute event is just part of the propellant load sequence when they are getting ready for loading the second stage with liquid oxygen. Before that, they need to condition the line that delivers that liquid oxygen to the second stage. And so there's a little vent on the side of the transporter ejector that vents out gaseous oxygen that sort of formed as you load a little bit of that liquid oxygen through the line. It warms up, it turns into a vapor, and so it's vented overboard. And so that's what we see from the transporter ejector at that point.
And hopefully we see that momentarily. We have Sebastian, thank you for your support. Saying that they built MRV and MEP at Northrop Grumman in Stirling. All of us at Northrop are watching your stream across from the mission operations here in Douglas. Well, that's very cool.
That's cool.
That's very cool. Thank you for
sad
tuning
if
in.
I butchered any of the stats or anything like that. I'm really trying my best. So sorry. Because yeah.
Well, no sweat, Alex. But you know the entire mission operations team are tuning in to the stream. We have lost the feed momentarily. We are working to bring that back, but as you could see, it's a little windy out on the side of the river, so the connection may have not worked in our favour, but we are working to bring that back. Sorry, Alex, for cutting you off.
No, it's okay. You know, it's just the things of being live. Sometimes things break, and so yeah, we'll be back with that view.
But yes, very cool for tuning in, and thank you for tuning in. And hopefully, when we actually launch, you'll be able to get some wonderful low latency live views on YouTube. Something SpaceX no longer provides. Fighting Falcon is asking, do we know how often Merlins are replaced? I'm not sure if there's ever been like an official documentation on this, or if there's a number painted on the side to track like the Raptors. But do you have any idea, Alex? You're the number one person to ask such a question.
There's really no tracking of such a thing. I mean, publicly, of course, SpaceX does track those sort of things. It's impossible to really know. Like, I wouldn't say it's 100% impossible, but it's, you know, by all means, it's 99.999, right? And so it's very, very complicated to keep track of Merlin engines in general. Very, very, very hard. Their integration happens at Hawthorne, and it happens very much out of public view. They don't have, as far as I know, any serial numbers that are visible in the nozzles. So that's another problem as well. There's a lot of things that make it nearly impossible, like almost 100% impossible to do any tracking. So we don't know that sort of thing. We do know there's obviously accounts of engines moving from booster to booster. We don't know if it is because they got broken and then they were repaired and put on another booster. It sounds like we have not seen that in the past with Starship as well. Like it's a thing that happens, and we know this because there was one booster that was flying for something like the 19th time, but one of the Merlin engines had already more flights than the booster itself. So it clearly came from another booster before that, and it had done X amount of missions, and then with this new booster, it had done whatever many other missions. So it had more flights under its belt than the booster itself. And so those things we do know because of things like that. We don't know how often it happens, but we do know it happens. So that's the answer.
So you can do just a tad bit of math to find an average answer. So they've done a flight with Merlin 6,000 times if you count 9 engines per mission, not counting the RVAX, or sorry, the MVAX or Falcon Heavy. And we know they've built over 1,000 Merlin engines. So that averages about to 6 flights per Merlin, but we do know that number is higher, but it shows approximately 6 flights per engine.
It also is probably interesting to mention that there were probably a bunch of Merlins that never flew, another bunch of engines that have not flown yet because they are on boosters that have not flown yet. Like there are 5 boosters that have been tested at McGregor but have not been flown. 3 of those are Falcon Heavy center cores, 2 of them are Falcon Heavy side cores. So that's what, 45 Merlins, I think, that have not flown. When you add up all of that, it's probably like maybe 100 or 200 of these engines that probably have not flown at all. And others have flown maybe once, and then others have flown like 30-something times. So yeah, the spread, it's the important thing, right? How much spread all of this thing is, and it's hard to know. That's for sure.
Indeed. And I will just say again, I've seen some people in chat. Apologies for losing the feed. We did not cut away intentionally. I can assure you of that. We have just lost the feed momentarily. We are working on bringing that back, but we have a few minutes left to go until launch. So plenty of time to get that sorted. Right now, you're looking at Port Canaveral from one of our fleet cams over at Rusty's Seafood and Oyster Bar, which is a wonderful place to watch the comings and goings as boosters go return to port. They don't leave port, they return to port. You can also see there Marmac 31, which is of course the Starship transport barge, which very soon, fingers crossed, Magnus, will be moving starships from Starbase to Florida for launch.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, you'll thank me later's taking a trip to Starbase in the next week or so. Does that track?
I have no idea.
I could be wrong, but that is, from my understanding, they are planning on sending the barge to Starbase soon. We don't know what they're planning on picking up. They did pick up a couple of transport stands last time. But hopefully we should see a booster on the barge soon, especially if they're considering doing a flight from the 39 Starship pad, which is the plan to do this year. So fingers crossed for that.
Yeah, hopefully it happens soon.
Sebastian has done another super, and they added on that NRL is tuned into you guys as well, and that we're their favourites. I'm not sure what NRL is. Is it Northrop something? I don't know. But it sounds important, and thank you for tuning in. I should probably Google it. It might be a good idea. Just over 13 minutes left to go in today's countdown. Overly Curious Cat is asking...
Naval Research Laboratory.
Thank you, Alex. We've got a tug coming in as well. Are they towing something in, or are they just coming in on their own accord? Just reversing through the shop. Okay. Overly Curious Cat is asking, what is the booster and the drone ship we are seeing?
That should be B-1080, I think. And then we also have there, just read the instructions, is right there. And then on the left is a chauffeur of gravitas. Yeah. They're putting side by side the two Starship transport barges, I think.
Yeah. Indeed. We have a question here from Tomas. They are asking, why is the lightning protection system so massive here while I can barely notice it at Starbase? Well, Magnus, I'm not sure if there even is one at Starbase, but of course Florida is a little bit stormy at some parts of the year.
Yeah, Florida is particularly the Cape area, is notorious for having anvil clouds and lightning strikes. So they have these huge lightning protection systems in order to protect the rocket from lightning strikes. This is something that's not found at Vandenberg or any other spaceport in the US, but Florida needs it because of the lightning strikes. And there has been multiple occasions where a rocket has been hit by lightning in flight. Particularly, was it Apollo 12, where they had a lightning strike during flight. So this is to protect the pad infrastructure from those lightning strikes, which occur rather commonly in the Florida area.
Sebastian has done another super chat. Thank you, Sebastian, confirming that it is the Naval Research Laboratory that they built the mission extension vehicle arms. That's also very cool. Yep. So thank you to everybody who actually worked on this mission, deciding to tune in at a very useful moment when the feed drops. I mean, we appreciate it nonetheless. We are still working to get that feedback. Yeah, wow, that is very, very cool, and it's an honor really to use the. I always hate using words like that because it's like, oh, I'm honored to be here. Like, get over yourself. But like, genuinely, that is an honor, and we are very, very grateful for entrusting us in bringing you live launch coverage I'm also very cognizant that I'm saying that while we're looking at looking at the port, but we are working on bringing the feedback, I promise. Just under 11 minutes to go in the countdown here for the MRV MEP mission on Falcon 9. So, Alex, as we progress through the later parts of the countdown here, what are some of the next events which we should be looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, in about 3.5 minutes, that should be when the engine chill should start on the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage. Then a few seconds later, like under a minute after that, should be the end of RP1 load on the first stage. And then we should be closer then by the 5-minute mark or so. That's when they start the pressing of the tanks, the pressurizing of the tanks for Stromback retract. That claw that you there at the top of the rocket opens and then separates. That Stromback basically retracts about 1.8 degrees away from the rocket. And then we go down to the final propellant events, basically. You can see there stage 1 liquid oxygen load complete about T-3 minutes, around T-2 minutes. That's going to be the stage 2 liquid oxygen load. The tanks will then pressurize for flight at T-1 minute. It's also when the onboard computers on Falcon 9 take over control of the countdown, and that's when we are in startup. Then hopefully a few seconds later, we're going to get the go for launch from the launch director, and maybe in 9 minutes and just 15 seconds, we'll get a launch of Falcon 9.
Indeed, but a launch is not guaranteed at all. And the other day we saw a Starship lighting its engines and not launching, and that was very swiftly followed by a Falcon 9 in solidarity lighting its engines at Vandenberg and also not launching. Coffee6690 is asking, is there any explanation of why the Vandy launch was aborted the other day? I'm not sure if anything has been said, or if we can kind of guess what may have happened, but regardless, I'm pretty sure according to the graphics at least, all the engines ignited and then quickly unignited.
Yeah, to our knowledge, nothing has been, they haven't publicly said what has happened, but Falcon 9 does occasionally have last-second aborts. If something is not strictly within the launch parameters, it is safer to cancel a launch and try again another day. And we saw the Vandenberg launch. It launched only 24 hours later, so that's a pretty clear indication that it was not any serious issue. And Falcon 9 and other liquid rockets have the ability to do this, which gives them extra flexibility in case something is wrong. So it's not a common occurrence, but it's not necessarily a rare one for Falcon 9. There's definitely been a couple of them over the last few years.
Let's see here. We have a question from, or rather a statement from Gabriel GG, saying that one thing I realised that this is the first Falcon 9 Cape launch in the afternoon in a while, since May probably. Yeah, it's very rare that we get a Falcon 9 launch at this wonderful time of day. Alex, it's not just lighting conditions though. There's actual, kind of traffic mitigation reasons why Starlinks love to occur at what we lovingly refer to as Starlink o'clock.
Yeah, the last one, as they say, it was in May. That was CRS-34. That was May 15 that didn't happen. So yeah, it's been about 2 months since the last launch around this time of the day. Which is also why this is probably like my first Falcon 9 launch commentary in a while. Because I've not been available for those times. But yeah, it's been a bit, and it kind of helps, as you mentioned, the time of day is not great when you launch. Like if you can avoid launching in the afternoon in Florida during the summer, take that other alternative time, right? Like maybe in the early morning, late evening, that sort of thing. That's usually when the weather is a lot more calm, or middle of the night, if you want to do that as well and wreck everybody's sleep schedules. But that's basically what's been happening for the last two months or so.
Absolutely. Approaching 6 minutes now in the countdown, so we should be well underway with engine chill on the first stage booster of Falcon 9, all 9 of those Merlin 1D engines getting nice and cooled down as they get ready to accept that kerosene and liquid oxygen, which will be fueling the vehicle. There it is on the left-hand box, continuing to count down over at Space Launch Complex 40. In these last few minutes, while we have the opportunity, probably time to squeeze in a couple more questions. Gabriel GG asking, besides B1069 retiring, do you think that B1067 will live for another 4 years or until Falcon 9 retires? Magnus, I suppose that's the other Falcon 9 funny number.
Yeah, B1067 is the fleet leader at this point in time, and it flew not too long ago. I don't think we're going to see B1067 fly for all that long. I think we might see it be expended in the next 2 years or so, because again, they are slowly replacing the fleet, and as they get older, they do. I mean, we haven't seen any reliability issues with Falcon, but it does make sense to potentially see them phasing out the older boosters. However, they might keep B1067 around simply because it is the fleet leader, but there will come a point where B1067 will most likely be expended because it gets old.
That is the most simple explanation. It's old. And it's exactly right. Yeah, when these things are flown a little while, they get a little creaky, and naturally their flying careers will come to an end. And sadly, that is also the case for B1069. It has flown many, many missions before, the vast majority of which Starlink missions, but it has also flown some customer missions as well. And very fittingly, its final mission will be a customer mission as well for Space Logistics Northrop Grumman, the manufacturer and operator of these payloads.
Yeah, and despite it being maybe a little sad seeing a booster like this go, keep in mind B1069 has flown 31 more times than a Vulcan will ever fly. So, and any other rocket apart from from Falcon 9, New Glenn, and Super Heavy. So, it's definitely got a good use there compared to what we previously seen.
Throwing shade on the Falcon 9 streams. Okay. What has poor Vulcan ever done apart from expend some nozzles during flight? Yeah. Under 3 minutes to go now until liftoff. Continuing to look at Port Canaveral here on the Space Coast. Slick 40 is just off in the distance. I think it might be actually blocked by the Marmac 31 barge. Thanks, SpaceX. So no view of it, unfortunately, from the port. We will see what feeds we can get back up in time for liftoff in 2.5 minutes from now. As a reminder, the weather conditions are 75% go for launch, according to the 24-hour weather forecast, which was issued yesterday, 24 hours, as you might have guessed, before the launch window opened. That opens in 2 minutes and 5 seconds time and is about 4 hours long. Although now we've entered fueling for Falcon 9, we are locked in for this T0 in just under 2 minutes from now. So should we get something other than a launch, unfortunately, that would be a stand down for the day. But let's not talk that up. We want to see a launch today. We've waited long enough for a nice daylight Falcon 9 launch from Florida. These are few and far between nowadays, which is pretty wild considering how often Falcon 9 flies. 90 seconds to go until liftoff. Propellant load wrapping up on the first stage. Alex, very briefly, what are some of the events that we're going to be looking for in the final few seconds of the countdown?
Yeah, should be now about 10 seconds away from Falcon 9 entering startup. That is when the onboard computers will take over control of the countdown from the ground computers. And after that, we'll hopefully get the go for launch from the launch director. And that's also when the propellant tanks are pressurized for flight. Falcon 9 just entered startup. And then it's also when they do a bunch of automated checks and things like that. So let's hope all of that clears and we get a launch in just a little over under 40 seconds from now. Launch trajectory is now go for launch.
Okay, unfortunately, it does not look like we're going to get a view of the launch immediately, but we will see it clearing the trees from the robotic views we have over at KSC. And there we go, we have liftoff of MRV-1, Falcon 9 flying B-1069 for the very final time. "70 seconds into flight, B-1069, 9 engines, full power, heading downrange. Next up is going to be passing through Max Q already. Next up is going to be MECO. 2 minutes and 27 seconds into flight. That is when those 9 Merlins will extinguish for the final time for B-1069 as we say goodbye to this booster, which has served SpaceX well over 31 flights before. This is its 32nd and final flight, passing 100 seconds into flight. Should be coming up on that momentarily. Approaching 2 minutes into flight now. You can see the exhaust expansion as Falcon 9 rises through the atmosphere. Of course, that atmosphere gets thinner and thinner, meaning the exhaust can get wider and wider if the clouds are not in the way. Thank you, Florida weather. And there we go, continuing to track the vehicle. Pulling 4G on the ride uphill. Standing by for MECO, main engine cutoff, and stage separation a few seconds later, followed very swiftly by second engine start 1. There is main engine cutoff. There's stage separation. And ignition of the MVAC. Salutes in chat for B-1069, because unfortunately that frozen feed on the left-hand side is the last we will ever see of that booster.
Yep. It pushed the second stage about 2,000 kilometers per hour faster than the average Starlink launch.
Thank you for the salutes in chat. Very appropriate. Thank you, everybody.
It's funny seeing the G-force indicator for the second stage at the beginning, because it's like it's a powerful engine, but because it's still full of propellant, it doesn't even pull 1G.
Yeah, and we don't
jet on board with the payload, and there they go, those 2 fairings falling back to Earth. Sorry, Magnus.
The only things to be recovered of this mission.
We don't typically get to see the G-force indicator for the second stage either, because the times they show, we don't have expended boosters, and when they don't show stage 2 views, it's all showing stage 1 telemetry. So this is one of the first times we actually get to see the G-force indicator on the second stage, which is a big plus.
And of course, the payload is going to be experiencing those Gs because it is under acceleration thanks to this Merlin vacuum engine we can see on screen right now. And when we get to SECO-1 coming up at 7 minutes and 55 seconds into flight, I'm sure we'll see that very quickly cut down to 0 because, of course, it'll be floating in microgravity or zero gravity or whatever you want to call it. Because I know there's physics people who say one thing and communicators who say another thing. It's 0G. Come on, it's 0G. Let's all agree on 0G. It's the best term. Approaching 5 minutes into flight.
In the case that this was a crew mission and astronauts were on board, despite being in space and passing over the Kármán line, they would still be experiencing approximately the same amount of G-forces you would down here on Earth.
Yep, 1.3 now. And 1.4.
Of course, with the seating position in Dragon, though, that would be coming through your chest rather than through your feet. So similar amounts of forces, but in a perpendicular direction to what you're used to, getting pushed into your seat.
One of the other things as well, because of the first stage was expended, and so they basically reserved all of their propellant for the push. That means the second stage doesn't have to do as much work on the uphill trip. And so the second engine cut off the first time that this second stage engine will shut down. That is going to happen a little bit earlier than we are used to for, Starlink missions and other sorts of missions. I think it's set to happen even earlier than 8 minutes. It's like 7 minutes and 50 something seconds, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly to the second. I have to look it up. In 55 seconds. There we go. 7 minutes, 55 seconds. It also means it should have quite a bit of propellant left. When you can see on the engine graphic on the right hand side, there's just one engine. There's like another line around it that is the propellant levels. So it's probably around 40%. What do you guys think? About 40%?
Yeah, I'll give you that. Approaching 20,000 kilometers now in speed. There we go, over 160 kilometers in altitude. Rapidly approaching SECO-1, second engine cutoff, number 1. They are going to be firing the engines again, approximately 30 engine, singular, again, approximately 30 minutes after launch, ahead of the deployment of the 4 payloads on board today's mission.
Now you can see the G-force is up to 3. Getting close now to the end of that burn.
Passing through 7 minutes and 40 seconds. About 10 seconds away from SECO. As we pass through 25,000 kilometers per hour. 7 kilometers per second. G-force is at 3.4. And down to 0 as we reach SECO-1. And we have a second stage and 4 payloads successfully inserted into low Earth orbit.
And they just called out normal orbital insertion, so that means it's in a good low Earth parking orbit. And as you mentioned, in about a little over 20 minutes from now, they're going to be igniting again that engine for another minute or so and push this out to geosynchronous transfer orbit. Still a bit, about 10%, maybe 15% left of propellant. So yeah, that's a good amount of propellant left for that other second burn.
Absolutely. So Falcon 9 is going to continue to coast in space, and thankfully we do have some beautiful views from on board the second stage here. Of course, Falcon 9 is going to be flying into sunset due to it launching in the evening local time, and there is a live view of the payloads on board stage 2. Oh, well, there was a live... Yeah, there we go. Thank you, SpaceX. Back with the live views. We will be reaching sunset and the Terminator line, but you can see there some beautiful cloud formations over the Atlantic Ocean. Magnus, of course, this mission launching pretty much to the east out of Slick 40, as opposed to the northeasterly missions we see to the space station or the southeasterly missions we see for Starlink.
Yeah, in order to get into geostationary orbit, you have to match the orbit of the Earth, which is to the eastern direction. So you can't go south, you can't go north, you can't go west, you have to go to the east. As simple as that.
And we will keep following for as long as we can, but we, of course, do have the live map view as well, courtesy of SpaceX, for the exact positioning of the second stage. Of course, once again, we salute B1069, which you can see on that graphic is touching Earth. However, I have a feeling it is no longer going to be in one
Already
nice
well
piece
gone.
of booster. It is going to be in many little itty-bitty bits of booster, if it even survived re-entering the atmosphere. Those pieces are now going to be at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. But these are some spectacular views from Stage 2 and of the payloads for, or built by Northrop Grumman, which are being launched in today's mission. And Alex, we might be coming up on a loss of signal with Falcon 9 shortly.
Yeah, they're about to be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and there's no ground stations out there. So yeah, they're probably going to be losing signal rather soon. Probably still get a little bit from Bermuda, but I don't see the altitude. Yeah, the altitude or speed are not moving anymore, and we don't see onboard footage. So I'm gonna call that loss of signal now. Yep, looks like they went into that.
Unlike, and this is different from this typical Starship missions which have Starlink dishes on board, but no Falcon 9 second stage or first stage carries that, and they rely fully on ground stations, which is the reason for losing that feed at this point in time. They'll receive that again once they fly over Africa, I believe.
You see they're just over halfway over the Atlantic Ocean now. I'm being told we have replays, but I'm not seeing them just yet. So we will have them when they're there. We go. Some replays from the cameras we did have during launch. Of course, this is going to be probably the most appropriate. There's not really an appropriate time for it, but I will say that we are very sorry for not being able to bring you those views of liftoff itself. We were, as you could imagine, troubleshooting some technical difficulties with our remote camera out across the river, and sadly that did not come back online in time. So yeah, we can only apologize for not being able to bring you the views that, frankly, we should be able to bring you. And yeah, there's nothing else we can really say on that one. We are just as sad as you guys are, but we will learn and we will do our best to make sure something like that never happens again. Because yeah, that's not good enough, unfortunately. Either way, we did get some robotic views of launch, and our remote operator Daniel was able to follow the vehicle with one of our robotic tracking assets at the KSC press site. And here it is. It is the clouds are wonderful in the background because they allow us to get that sort of context shot. You're able to actually see how fast the vehicle is flying. They're annoying when they get in the foreground of the shot because then they block the vehicle and mean that we can't actually see the rocket. But it's cool there because then you get it going through the clouds and you get it lighting up the clouds. But then the clouds get a little bit in the way, which is unfortunate. So we are approximately 15 minutes away from that second burn on the second stage. But for the NSF stream, we will be starting to wrap things up here. So first of all, Magnus, thank you for coming on today's stream.
It's always a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Alex, same to you. Great to talk about Falcon with someone who knows quite a lot about Falcon.
Yeah, hopefully we get some testing out there at Starbase tomorrow, right?
Indeed,
Let's see
coming
what
up on
happens.
Starship Flight 13. Fingers crossed this week. Fingers crossed some additional pre-launch testing with the booster after seeing some Raptors rolling by at McGregor. Of course, also thank you to Sawyer who rolled out providing us with the on-site feeds. Unfortunately, of course, those weren't back for liftoff. But we sent a lot of our usual team and the vast majority of our equipment over to Starbase to support Starship Flight 13. So we were running up with our kind of minimum viable product set up for the tech powering the live feed today. Of course, that was obviously not good enough. We were unable to bring you those live views of liftoff. So again, I will say we apologise for that, and we will work on making sure that something like that never happens again, because that is not what we want to do here at NSF. Thank you, of course, to Sucknor for producing today's stream, and to make sure you don't miss the next one, follow us across all the socials, wherever you like to get your social content from. I've been Ryan Caton for NSF. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
And here we go.
There's the W. Here's ignition.
Doubling up.
Did you just do a Kerbal?
Back to the moon and beyond.
Put that in the big bag, you know.
Back at home, we all have a lot of work to do, but from here, that sure looks like a perfect flow.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
We did have an observation.
343 unfolds to go.
It's orange.
Water towers, fly!
Bingo! Right in the center.
Where's Jacqueline? There it is!
That was surreal.
That's not what we want to see.
Oh my God.
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.